guys, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. So I am filming in a new spot today behind a different bookshelf because my bookshelf in the living room is on right on a noisy road, and so I'm trying to eliminate that noise. So that is the plan. So until we move, I'm probably going to be filming right here from now on. Just a little disclaimer. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap up, and in all I read 9 books, which I did a 24-hour readathon in March, and I read 5 of those books, I think 5 of them, in that 24-hour period. So without further ado, let's just get into my March wrap-up. So the first book I read in March was Elimination by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I don't typically read sci-fi, but I absolutely loved this book. I loved how it wasn't just prose, how it was different files and things. And it was so interesting. There was so much at stake, and it was just so good. Honestly, it was the best book that I've probably read in 2019. It was probably one of my favorites. I cannot wait to pick up Gemina, but I haven't done it yet. I know I suck. I need to. I have it. I just haven't done it yet. That's something I need to do. But I absolutely loved Eliminate. I loved Katie and I loved Ezra. I loved the AI. I thought the characters were just so interesting, and they were fun, and they were in a tragedy, but they were also witty and sarcastic like teenagers are, and I absolutely loved that about them. And I loved this book, and so it was a 5 out of 5 stars read for me. I cannot wait to pick up Gemina. The next book that I read was Sadie by Courtney Summers, and I actually listened to this on audiobook. I listened to it in about 2 days because me and my husband were on a trip, so we were driving a lot, so I listened to it whenever we were driving. And this book is dark, but it was so good. So it follows a girl named Sadie who is trying to find the man that killed her sister and trying to avenge for herself and her sister's death. It's a dark book. There's a lot of trigger warnings in there: suicide, murder, pedophilia, molestation, and many, many others, to be honest with you. It talks about a really real subject, and it's such a good book, but it definitely will hit home for some people. It was definitely a book that made me cry, and it talked about a very real and hard subject that people don't want to talk about, and I love that about it. I love that it talked about those things that people really don't want to discuss, and I actually really loved the format of it, so I listened to it on audiobook. And other than Sadie's chapters, the other chapters come in the format of a podcast, and I really thought that was very intriguing. I loved the cast on the audiobook. I would definitely recommend listening to it on audiobook. I don't actually have the physical copy. I do want to buy it eventually, but the audiobook was amazing. The story was hard, but it was also really amazing, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So I definitely recommend reading that. It was, on top of Illuminate, it was one of my favorite books of 2019. So far, it was so good. The next book I read was The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket, and this follows the Baudelaire children, and they find out that their parents died in a fire, and they go to live with their uncle, Count Olaf. Their not uncle, their second cousin twice removed or something like that, and he is after their fortune, and so it just follows them. This is a middle grade book. I read it whenever I was younger. I just wanted to relive that and have that kind of love again, so I read this. And it was so good. If you watched my 24-hour readathon, then you know that I have a really hard time rating middle grade books. But if I were to rate this, I would say that this was definitely a 5 out of 5 stars, just because it took me back to that place whenever I was younger, and I absolutely loved reading every second of it. The next book that I read in the month of March was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was really good. I read it for Bookmarks Book Club by Zoe from Read by Zoe, Hannah from Clockwork Reader, and Haley from Haley and Bookland. I read this pretty quickly. I also listened to this on audiobook, but I followed along with the book sometimes, and then sometimes I didn't. But the audiobook was really good. It also had a cast of characters, and they were all very interesting. I thought they did a really good job in the audiobook. I was not as obsessed with this book as everybody else was. There was a lot of people who said they read it multiple times, very quickly. They cried, they laughed, they were just in love with this book. And I think I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars or 3.5. I thought it was really good, but I just wasn't absolutely in love with it. It just didn't hit that for me. I feel like, and maybe it's because I listened to the audiobook, maybe it's because I didn't physically read the book. It just didn't, I didn't feel like Daisy felt bad for any of the things that she did and all the commotion that she caused. And honestly, I feel like she didn't have a lot of character development. Like at the very end, the very, very end, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. But like during the book, when she is telling her story, I felt like it just wasn't there. I don't know how to explain it. I just wasn't absolutely in love with this book the way everybody else seemed to be in love with this book. So I gave it a lower rating. It doesn't mean that I didn't like the book. I thought the book was great. Taylor Jenkins Reid did an incredible job with this book, but I just wasn't absolutely in love with it. So I'm sorry. So I was wrong about the amount of books that I read in the month of March because I actually read another book. I read Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and I am not a big true crime mystery reader, but this book had me sucked in. It's about a girl named Stevie, and she is accepted into this boarding school, the Ellingham Academy, which is basically where you go to this boarding school for free, and everybody with like different special topics that are like the smartest of the smartest or like the most intrigued or things like that get accepted into this boarding school. And she got accepted because she is really into true crime. So she goes to this boarding school, and at the beginning of the book you find out there is a crime that happened right when the school opened, and so you follow Stevie trying to figure out what happened in this school, and so many other things happen as well. She solves other mysteries that are going on, and the next book is The Twisted Stairway. I don't know. I can't wait to read the next book because this book absolutely entranced me and I absolutely loved every second of it. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars too. March was a really good reading month for me because I read really, really good books in my opinion. I read a lot of 5-star books this month, and so I hope I can keep that pattern up in the month of April. Absolutely loved this book. So the next books that I read during my 24-hour readathon, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about them because I talk about them in my 24-hour readathon, and I will have that linked down below as well. But the first book that I finished during my readathon was Matilda by Roald Dahl. And if you watch that, then you know that I've never actually read this book before, and that I loved the movie whenever I was a child. I watched it all the time, and so I finally decided to read the book, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars too, because it is a middle grade, so it's harder for me to judge, but I loved the story because I've known the story all of my life. I mean, obviously it's a little bit different in the book than it is in the movie, but I loved every second of reading it. It was so good, and honestly, it made me want to watch Matilda like 6 more times and read the book 6 more times because it was so good. The next 2 books that I read during my 24-hour readathon were The Reptile Room and The Wide Window by Lemony Snicket. I read these during the readathon very quickly, and I absolutely loved them. The only thing that I had a problem with, and that I probably didn't notice whenever I was younger, is how repetitive the books are, and so I decided that I could not read these back to back. I'm gonna have to like read one a month or something because I can't do the repetitiveness back to back all the time. But I mean, it is a middle grade book, so it's probably easier for children to understand the repetitiveness better. I don't really know. All I know is I really loved these books whenever I was younger, and I probably didn't notice how repetitive they were. So it's just reading them as a 21-year-old is a little bit harder. The next book that I finished in the month of March and during my 24-hour readathon was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And you know, this book is just amazing. I am a huge fan of Harry Potter. Love Harry Potter to death. Like, favorite book series of all time. So I can't even get into this because I will talk about Harry Potter for days. And so 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. The absolute last book that I finished in the month of March was Jeannie B. Jones and My Big Fat Mouth. I finished this during my 24-hour readathon as well. It was just a fun little chapter book that I read whenever I was younger. This was like the first set of chapter books that I had read after I started reading, and so being back in this book, I mean, it was just a fun little kid's story, and I absolutely enjoyed reading it. So I guess 5 out of 5 stars for this kid's story. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed watching my March wrap up. If you did, like the video and subscribe down below. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I'll see y'all next time.